All right.
Hey everyone, this is Ashley Joyner. Welcome to my podcast on the effects of Hurricane Florence and education, specifically the Hispanic education. So we all remember when Hurricane Florence came through and basically all the schools were out for months. And some schools started back later, just started back actually, and had to revamp their whole year. So they basically had to start over from the beginning. And we know that the aftermath posed a lot of dangers on us with the community and pushed back our education. But we don't realize that the Hispanic community actually faces worse issues than us with that. And some issues that I seen by interviewing was there was one lady, she didn't want me to give her name or anything, but she was saying that with her children, she was scared to leave her house, and she was in one of the areas that was hit hard, and she was scared that immigration was going to come get her and take her and her kids. So she didn't want to leave. She didn't want to leave her house. She didn't want to take her children to a safe place, and that caused them to get stuck there and have to be rescued and taken away, and then it caused them to have to move. They didn't have anything, little to nothing. So they had to move and relocate her child, which she was saying put her child back because the school they actually relocated to was where some of her family's at now, and it has actually put her child back a lot with where she was learning, because now the child is uncomfortable. The child has to get used to the people, and the people have to get used to her, and she really has to build this sort of like a relationship with the family. So that has sort of put a drawback on her with her education. And a lot of things I've noticed with doing my research and actually getting out and talking with the Hispanic community is that they were scared for immigration to come take them, so they didn't want to go, or they've had a lot of impact where they don't have much money, or they send their money back home, so they don't have anything with them. They didn't have very little valuables with them, so it sort of put them either having to go back to their home country or have to find somewhere else, which is pulling them out of the school system they're in and having to relocate them to another system. So what I'm wondering is, what do y'all feel about that, or what do you think our education system should do, or basically our whole system should do, to make these parents and kids feel like when they relocate to a different area that they don't feel like their education is being jeopardized? Because this is actually every family I've talked to that had to relocate to another area, they've had to basically start over with their child. For some reasons, they really didn't want to say, because I could barely get them to speak to me because it's like a hush-hush situation. But it's like that their child basically had to start over from scratch, and it's definitely hampering their education, because as you know, with us, with our education, even with us and having to start back, it sort of backed us up a lot. So with the Hispanic community, they're seeing a lot where their children is falling behind, and it's causing them this just a domino effect. So like, what is y'all's thoughts on that?
Well, number one, I think it's really sad from what you said that, they were afraid to get to safety for the reason that they might get caught or by immigration. And that's pretty sad that even in a time of emergency, you can't even feel like you can go to safety in order to, not be afraid for your life in a situation like that, like a natural disaster. That's pretty sad that they feel like they can't leave for that reason. And then second of all, I definitely see what you're saying with the relocating. That really puts people, especially children, back, because they're having to get used to this whole new environment, a whole new school, possibly other family members that they probably haven't been around very much or for very long. And it's just, it's not easy to go somewhere that you're not familiar with, but it's especially hard on children because they're not used to it, and they don't have any reason to be used to something like that. And then you're trying to teach them in the process, and it's just too much.
Definitely. With talking with the parents, it was like the other schools that they would go to, either their translators weren't there because they've been relocated, or they've stuck somewhere else because they wanted to go to their family. So when they did start back, there's some schools that have to go to different schools, and it puts the child at jeopardy because, one, these parents, most of these would come with the farm workers, and farm workers get down there and they're like, wow, okay, so we've got a good job, we're making the money, this is a good life, I want to bring my family down here, because they say where they come from, the specific part of Mexico where these family I interviewed come from, it was horrible conditions, and it's so much better here than it is there. So basically they're coming to live the American dream. Their child is getting the education, the American education, and they're loving it. And then all of a sudden, immigration, they get rumors that immigration is going to take them away. They don't want to come out to the public. And some of these kids don't have IDs. They don't have, basically they're illegal, and they don't want to be known. And it's putting them in a bind. And then when you hear them talk about it, when they move to other schools, it's really pushing them back to the point they're scared their child may have to start over again or repeat their grade again, all because they shifted school. And it shouldn't be like that. And that's what I was seeing during this whole process of interviews, that it's actually their parents have sat down and talked, and it was like, well, if your child don't do this, they're going to have to repeat the grade again. And it's only December, and schools had to start over again. So it's sort of putting them at a tailspin, and you're looking at thousands of immigrant farm workers that has come over, and some of them bringing their family. And they're running out of money, they're running out of options, and it's putting them in the bind, either to go back to Mexico and try to fight it again or come back. So it's something scary to think about. I mean, what do y'all think? I mean, what is some options y'all think you would do to change, or what is your opinions about some kind of change with this? Because there's got to be some kind of change.
Well, I mean, as far as the relocating and coming to a new school, you can't really change how a child is affected by something like that. You can the only thing you can really do is try to make it easier for them to get used to the environment that they've been moved to. But you add on the fact that they're in a new environment, and then you have the fact that they just went through a natural disaster, and they haven't been in school for however many months or weeks, and it's just, it's not a good, it's like a cycle, they're get behind because of it. And I don't really know what you could do about that, because obviously they can't learn they can't learn well when they're in that type of situation where they can't focus on that. All they're thinking about is my home, where the place that I used to live. What about my family? And I mean, I don't really know what you could do about that.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like, that's just like such a hard thing to like think about, like what you could do. Just because, like you said, when they're at school after something like this happens, like, that's what we talked about in one of my other education classes, about they're not worried about school and learning this and that. They're just worried about their family and their home, and like, what if they don't really have a home to go to anymore because of this? Like, that's all they're really going to be thinking about and worrying about.
And I mean, when me and Ashley, we went to the convention earlier in the week, last week, and they talked about that. They talked about how they were providing funding to families and schools and stuff that had been impacted by Florence, trying to help get people back at least move them forward some, and help them get into a position where they can focus on other things than, am I going to have food? Am I going to have a job? Am I going to have a home because of this, But, I mean, you can't really push a child to learn when they can't focus on it. You can't change how they're affected by something like this. So you kind of just, you just kind of have to, we have to hope that the ones that are impacted the most get the funding and stuff that they were talking about, and that it helps them some enough to where they don't feel like they have to focus and worry like their parents, because I mean, we don't see it as much except when there's natural disasters or there's like emergencies or something, but when the parents worry, the children do too. And especially in a case like this. So.
And actually, what you just said, talking about the conference, it's sad that the research I was doing, there is actually a form. It's called a response to Hurricane Florence. It's called there's a form where the F1 and M1 non-immigrant students in affected areas fill out an application, but they have to go through Homeland Security. And just to read a little bit on the paper they have to fill out, there's actually questions that they have to answer. Has your school been impacted by the hurricane? You have to give contact information. Have you ever accounted a non-immigrant enrolled at your school, as well as their accompanying dependents? Do you anticipate an immediate recovery that will enable your student to resume their full course of study for this session? If the hurricane impact will preclude resumption of normal student progress this session, do you have an alternative plan? So this is supposed to provide assistance with maintaining contact with your students as a teacher, but they have to go through Homeland Security to do it. And I understand that immigration and all that is a Homeland Security and governmental thing, but why should they have to go through that process to keep in contact if like the teachers want to keep in contact with their students? That should be something that's implemented like within the school system and not have to go through Homeland Security. So what is y'all's thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, when it comes to a situation like this, the people who have been impacted can't help the fact that they were impacted. So, I mean, I guess in a way it kind of seems like discriminating, even though they may not be legal. They're still human beings, and in a situation like this, you can't just let people die or become homeless because of a natural disaster. I mean, they need money regardless of the situation. It's not like normal everyday thing. There was a natural disaster that they could not help or do anything about. They can't change it. They can't change how it affected them either, and they weren't hurting anybody before. So, I mean, I don't know. It's just.
I just don't think it sounds fair. Like, they have to go through Homeland Security. And, like, some of the questions, like, just the questions that it asked were just crazy, in my opinion.
It is something to think about because, like, I agree, there should be a proper protocol for it. But if you ever get a chance to actually pull this up and look at it, it's asking, can your school submit this in a timely fashion? Are you not able to respond to this request? And it's sort of scary looking at it and saying, okay, well, how about if my school can't get in? And when you go through Homeland Security, go through government, anything with government, it takes forever to do. So it's sort of a scary thought. Okay, we're trying to get these non-immigrants help so the teachers can reach out to them and they can still keep up in their school they're assigned to, then how long is it going to take? And then what's going to happen to that student? Because like we were saying earlier, these people come, they establish their own places, they put all their money into it, hoping to go and live the American dream, and they lose it all in a matter of seconds. So, you know, it's going to take long. How long is it going to take? Can you get it in? Can you not get it in? And that's something that's scary to think about also. These children are going to be affected by it, what's going to happen to them, even though they're trying to do something good.
Yeah. Anything involving the government does take a lot of time. So, you know, what are they going to do during that time? When they still need help, they still need money and stuff. And then because it's the government, they have to worry about, well, am I going to be targeted after this? You know?
That's something that, like, what I was saying earlier when I was doing my interviews with some of these Hispanic families, they were like, well, we were even scared to even try to reach out to anybody. And then there was one family, or one man, his family is just trying to come in to be with him, and he's just like, what do we do? We're going to lose everything, and why should I bring my kids down here to be a part of the school, put them in school, get them settled in, just to have to leave? Because we basically invested everything in here, and we just lost it in a matter of seconds. And like us, we can get help with American Red Cross, we can get help with FEMA, we can get help all these places.
And from our communities. They don't have the same community. They don't have the community on their side. They have to hide and, you know, just try to blend in. But, you know, a lot of people are against the illegal immigrants that are in our country. And in some ways, I understand that, but at the same time, you can't. Maybe there's reasons why people come here the wrong way, because it's so expensive to do it the right way, and because there's a lot of times they're scared for their lives, you know, and their families and stuff. And so you can't really blame them for wanting to come here either. But
like the immigrants that's actually over here working on a visa, they're trying to bring their kids over here, and they're actually getting them over here illegally, but they want to get on. They want to place, you know, get them in the system and have them legal, but they want to get them over here with them because of everything that's going on, and they just want to be with their families. And there's thousands upon thousands of immigrants that is just working as farm hands. So you can't imagine in other labors like construction and all that, you've got all these immigrants here trying to sneak their families in and then try to get them legal, and it's putting them in a bind because now they're over here and they're scared they're all going to get deported, even to the ones that's legal, because they're scared they're going to get in trouble for actually, I guess you could say, or
harboring them, and
and I'm just
giving them a place to go.
Or smuggling them, as one man said. I feel like I'm smuggling my family over here, but I want them to be with me and I want them to be legal. So then they're scared they're going to get deported back because of that and lose all this help that they're getting and all this money that they're making, taking back.
Yeah. And I mean, there are rules in place for things like that, but then again, it's not exactly fair, because it seems like, and a lot of times it is this way, that people are just against them. It doesn't matter what their intentions are. It doesn't matter what their plans are. You know, it doesn't matter that they're trying to make a new life. It's, you're illegal. You don't belong here, kind of thing. And, you know, that's not how it should be. I mean, because more than likely, if they wanted to get here so badly that they were willing to do it illegally, their situation wherever they were before is not good.
Definitely. Yeah. And then you got to look at it on both sides. Like, this caravan that's coming over, they were offered jobs and all this help in Mexico, and they're still like, I'm going to get to the United States. That's one thing. But if you look back to Plymouth Rock and the Mayflower and all that, they came over illegally and they established, they grew, and now it's what we call now the United States. So it's like, well, what is their agenda? Are they coming over here to live a better life and actually be productive citizens of the United States? Or are they coming over here just to take over and take control? And that's something that you really have to think about too. And I think that is the bad apple that makes all immigrants and illegals coming over to be legal. I think that's what makes them all look bad, is that certain bunch that's just over here just to take over and seize the day type thing.
Yeah. It's just that, when there's a disaster, for us, we have our community, we have our family, we have the school systems and everything, and like you said, the FEMA and the Red Cross, and they don't have that. They don't have those emergency services and the things that will take care of their basic needs and things when something like this happens. So it's just not fair.
And I'll throw this out here to y'all too. I was actually the family I was interviewing that don't want to be named, which I'm gonna respect them all, and I'm not going to name none of them because they were hesitant about it at first when I was explaining the situation. But this family said their family finally convinced them to, hey, you need to go seek shelter, and they went somewhere to a shelter, but they were denied because they didn't have the right papers. They didn't have anything. So apparently, I don't know if it was protocol for that shelter or they just seen the people and just immediately just picked them out of the bunch and started discriminating against them. But they said they were actually turned down for that shelter. So then they felt like, well, can I go anywhere else, or what do I need to do? So
yeah, you don't have any options in that situation.
So then
there's nothing you can do about it, or at least you feel that there's nothing you can do about that situation. Because you're doing what you have to do to not get caught, to not get deported like you were talking about, because going back for them isn't an option unless they absolutely have to, but they don't want to do that, and for good reason.
And it's like the woman said, she said, I love this school. It has did my kids wonders. They're so bright. They're so intelligent. She said, but she said, after seeing this, she said, where am I going to go? Because their school was one of the schools that was affected to the point they shut down for a long while. She says, so where do I go? Do I go back home? Is where she wanted to go because everybody was pushing her away and she felt like she didn't have nowhere else to turn to. Or do I move them to another school system like eventually happened, and when they moved in with their family, to put them in that school system to get them by, because she didn't want them to stay out, because of course there's other situations within that family that sort of hinder that child. It's not just not being able to speak good English, but there's other factors within that. So she didn't want her children out of school long. And then it really pushed them back because they were at different places. Whereas you see that the school she come from was further ahead, or it was behind. I'm not for sure. But when she said she went into that school, it definitely threw everybody off. So that sort of has pushed that child back to the point she may have to start that grade all over again.
Well, I feel like it's not fair for a natural disaster to be the cause of a child to be set back like that. I think there should be some kind of, something that we could do during this specific situation, Like, I don't believe, at the same time, I can understand if they're not ready to be in the next grade level. But at the same time, it wasn't their fault. in any way. There was nothing they could have done to change the situation, to make it work better for them. It was just, and so, I mean, I feel like there's something that we should be able to do about that. Like, as far as, like, school policy or something, there's got to be something that we can do to make sure that they learn, but they don't get held back just because they had to change schools, or their school was out for so long, and when they finally got back, they were just so behind. Or
so that leads to say, how when we do our classes, like with this class, sometimes we have an online portion, or we take online classes, or we do something where they can keep up. And if the child has the ability to have some kind of source of checking in or doing or whatever, that leads to say, why can't they put some kind of implement something in place to help the kids sort of stay on track? Or if they can't do that, because I'm sure some can't, do something like Homeland Security does, but not at such an extensive level. Say maybe they could set up something at the beginning of the year. Okay, I know this child comes from this home and they're immigrants and they're struggling. Their parents don't speak any English. So we know this kid, if something happens, because we all know here in North Carolina, we have some oddball weather. It's about as bipolar as the day is long, because it's cold one minute and hot the next. And it's in the middle of November. So we know we're going to have some rough weather. So why can't we set up some kind of paper trail process, so if something like this happens, they don't have that fear within them.
Yeah, I agree. These schools should already be aware and be ready to react to this situation. And if their school is not running, then they should be able to find some way to keep up with these particular students, and to, or their parents or something. And if they relocate, they can send that information to the school that they relocated to or whatever. And it would be extra work, but at the same time, you can't just not do anything.
I mean, like you said, it is going to be extra work. It's definitely going to be extra work, but there's people out here, like teachers that's coming straight out of school, like we will be doing, that, okay, hey, here's a job opening for this. Your job would be this, that, and the other. And then when crisis situation comes up, this is what you'll be doing. And I don't see why all these funds that's supposedly coming from the NC lottery and all this, why couldn't they fund some kind of crisis intervention plan for these students? Because these immigrants that's here legally, that maybe their parents may not be, or something about them, they're just scared and terrified to the point they don't want to come out, they'll have some kind of intervention plan for that student set up. I mean, we have it for every other thing possible. We know that immigrants are here. We know that they're going to be here. That's just something we got to face. Why can't the school system set up some kind of crisis intervention plan, like, you were just saying, to help these children, because they're here and we don't want to treat them as a nuisance. And I feel like that's what they treat them as now, is just nuisances. But they're here, so we need to give them the same opportunities as us if we're going to do it legally.
Exactly.
I live in Jacksonville, and I heard my husband was like teaching little kids how to play soccer. He was a coach, and I heard one of the moms talking about how there was no school, and so one of the teachers decided that he would just have all the kids come to his house, and that he would teach them at his house, the way they didn't fall behind. And I thought that was like something cool.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing, especially knowing that he's not getting paid for that. So.
No, he's not. And so like,
I mean, if a teacher is willing to go out their way to do that, there's more teachers that's willing to go out their way. But some teachers might be like, I don't want to. Is that borderline crossing the line, or is that okay? And that teacher's like, I don't care. I'm going to do it anyway because I love my students.
Exactly.
And there's more that's willing to do that if you just come and say, hey, it's okay for you to do this.
I think that's part of the problem. I mean, we have a lot of really good teachers, but at the same time, I feel like we also have a lot of teachers who they're not as passionate about their job, you know? And that's really sad because it's a very important job. You're the role model. You're one of the most prominent figures in a child's life when you're a teacher. So it's important for you to set a good example and to just to care about them, because you spend more time with them than their own parents do. So, I mean, and I'm not saying that every teacher should do what that teacher did, you know. I mean, I understand that there are some teachers who they may not have the time or something. Maybe they're involved in other things, but, you know, the ones that do should.
Well, and, like, not even just having to do it at your own house. Like,
just something.
Like, a public place, or, like, I don't even know, like, maybe, like, a library or something.
I mean, if you look around, there's a bunch of meeting halls and gathering centers and different kind of buildings set up to rent out. And at a crisis situation, people giving away anything to use. And if the community can allow something to be turned into somewhere for somebody to stay, I don't understand why they can't allow a building to say, okay, you can use this for a school, a makeshift school, until you can get through. And that's thing I've noticed with the interviews and just looking back at the different situations when Florence come through. And this is just as a community, not just the Hispanic community, but everybody as a whole. There was schools having to go to other schools, and it was jamming the schools up, which is causing a situation because it's double crowding. But you didn't see somebody with a big building or a conference field hall or anything say, hey, these doors are open for you to use as a classroom. Just take it. You didn't see that.
Or maybe, you know, going to another school but using something like their school gym or something, you know. That would hold a lot of people, a school cafeteria. If you absolutely had to go to another school, use the cafeteria or the gym or something.
And you got
it's big and you can hold lots of people.
Yeah, definitely.
You can have it separated off, kind of like, I don't know. I mean, you could have it like separated off, you know, maybe something hanging that separates each classroom almost as if it was a suite type thing, you know, that way. And you can have several different teachers or whatever it took to get it done and to do what was needed to be done.
Yeah.
But
and just going off of what you said a little while ago, if you think about it, you know, you were saying we spend more time with the students than their parents. They see us more than they see our parents. So you got to think some of these parents, and I've experienced this in the classroom I'm volunteering in right now. I'll be doing my student teaching in next semester. The parents don't have the same education as the child is getting. So when they're at home, even if the parent could speak English, you know, and read what's going on, they can't do what we're doing because they have the same education level. And then you have to look at it at a point when them kids are at home, their parents might try, but either they can't speak English and they don't understand it, or they can speak a little bit of English and they still don't get it. So that sort of puts a strain on the children. So that's, I mean, doing like you said and turning these buildings into little suites like the gym and other things, just putting walls up, these portable walls up. I mean, that would give the child the opportunity to continue on with their education and not fall behind.
Yeah. I think it's just sad that we're not doing anything. You know? I mean, we are doing things, but we're not doing enough.
I mean, that is true. If you look on TV, you see send money overseas to these poor kids. And I feel bad. I honestly do. It's sad that there's children overseas that don't have the supplies for school, that don't have this. So we do Operation Shoebox and send school supplies and coloring books overseas. But how about the immigrants that has come to America. Maybe they receive the shoebox. Maybe they see the help. And they're like, ooh, I like that. The United States cares for us. So I'm going to come here because I know I'll get a good education here. And then they get here and they're like, well, was that all a ruse? Was that just what's going on? Because we take all of our funds, take it overseas to help somebody, but then they see the good and say, well, I want that. I want better for myself. So they come here and it's like, well, what were y'all doing, lying?
Yeah.
It's sad that they can't even help coming here, which I understand. I'm not saying, and don't take this as I'm saying, because I'm not saying quit helping the people overseas. I mean, everybody needs help. I mean, I'll help anybody I can, but you got all these people coming into America, and it's causing a situation because we can't help them because we're sending all our money somewhere else.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, even doing the improvising and making up like just something to get the students back in a classroom type environment, it would be helpful. But even though they're going through all these changes, it would be more helpful than waiting a long period of time and then having them be relocated and have done nothing that entire time that they were gone. You know.
And I think it all boils down, even though we're talking about education of Hispanics, it boils down to how they feel as a community within their community. And this is just going by experience of be interviewing people, they're scared to come out. They're scared of going to be sent back. So they are not worried about their child's education. They're worried about if they're going to get deported back to wherever they come from. They're not going to come out. They're not going to, and we're giving them that fear. We're putting that kind of fear into them, and they're not thinking about anything. And that's just not even a Hispanic immigrant. A child gets beat, they're going to school to look for safety. They're not going to school to learn. They're going to school because they get 8 hours a day from their parents who beat them. So if you can open your doors up and allow the Hispanic community to see, hey, you have a safe place, you're okay, they'll put more effort into their education when a disaster comes about by going to a shelter to save themselves so they don't get killed or don't have to go back to where they come from to start over again. They can stay here and they'll know they'll be assisted, helped, and they won't be sent back like they're scared. They're going to be done, and then the education won't suffer. But it all boils down to how we as Americans make them feel.
I agree.
So do y'all have anything else to add to our education podcast tonight?
I can't think of anything else that I would like to add.
I can't either.
Well, I think I have covered everything that I have done my research on and covered all the questions I have put down. So if nobody else has any questions for tonight, I think we'll wrap this podcast up.
All right.
Thank you.